Alright, let's move on to the next roster review. So this is from PadawanSidious, or Baymath, I think is their YouTube name. So they posted under one of my YouTube videos for a roster review, so I maybe have a little bit less information, but I think that's fine because they are free to play and a very new free to play, so there's only so much stuff that they could have picked up in that time. So I think I've got quite a good idea of the account just by going through it. And they also mentioned quite a nice idea in that they started their account a very similar time to when I did, around about the anniversary. So they suggested potentially doing a bit of a comparison, which I think is quite an interesting idea. So I might do that later on in the video, just looking at the difference between a spending account and completely free to play account. I can go over how much I've spent as well, just for a bit of comparison. Yeah, so let's move on to the review itself. So their account age is 45 days. This is actually, I think, a little bit less than they would have been playing since the anniversary, but for, I think, quite a simple reason. And that is this account age is taken from the number, basically the number of Galactic War battles divided by 12. But if you are purely free to play, you may not be doing the 12 Galactic War battles from the get-go. So this is why this number is probably a little bit lower than it is in reality, but it basically they've been playing for less than 2 months, or about 2 months, so no time at all, really. They are 1.2 million, which I think compared to a year ago for a new free-to-play account is definitely a lot higher, and that is because of Lightspeed tokens really helping to propel these new accounts, and they are also part of free-to-play guild. I think I reviewed someone else who was an entirely free-to-play guild as well, perhaps in the same alliance. I remember something people like the People's Guild. I have a feeling this might be part of that free-to-play alliance, which is cool. So that means their guild is going to be at very early stages, with maybe not doing the most recent raids, which I'll go into. But yeah, hopefully with all of the Lightspeed tokens they'll be able to grow together. And of course, just because you're free-to-play doesn't mean you have to join a free-to-play guild. If this player did want to move on, they're probably in a position to do so if they wanted to, but they might enjoy being part of the free-to-play community in that guild. Right, so moving on, mod score. Yeah, really not that much time has passed, so 0.87 for each. I think that's fine. It's hard to get a good gauge on mods so early, just because there's hardly any time to farm them. They don't have that much crystal income so far, so would probably struggle to do any refreshes, maybe one refresh on mod energy each day. It's good to try keeping top of it as possible, but might be challenging at the very start. So their guild score, so this isn't entirely accurate. I'm just going to make a quick change to illustrate this better. Right, yes. So what I've done is I've just covered up the Mark III raid currency, because the raid they are doing is in Order 66. It is the Sith Triumvirate raid, and I believe it's just the normal Sith Triumvirate raid, so not the heroic one. If it is the heroic one, apologies, the Mark II will be a little bit higher, but just from looking on SWGOH.gg, I think it is just the normal Sith raid. So what I've done is I've just put in the equivalent score for Order 66 that would get roughly the same Mark II. So this isn't their score in the Sith Triumvirate raid, it's way higher than that. It's like 150 million, and there is no, from what I can tell, personal raid reward for that raid, so there's no personal rewards to add. And they're doing the raid sort of every 4 days, but it costs half of the price to start compared to Order 66, so it's the equivalent to doing it every 8 days. So eventually that all maths out about 5,000 Mark II which I think is maybe one of the big difference between this account being a very new free-to-play account and other accounts I've looked at, is that this Mark II is quite a bit lower, so I can see this being quite a big bottleneck earlier on as you're looking to relic up characters and also add relics as well, which you can now buy with Mark II. So I think a lot of my focus is going to be on that, but of course improving the raid score is a guild thing, so there's only so much I can give advice on there. But I think definitely for this player, I think that should be one of the main focuses, is how can I effectively double this value, which is very possible. So yeah, in terms of their own performance in Carbonite 5, which is fine, they've just started, not spending any money. Fleet rank, they said they haven't started focusing on fleet, but are working towards Galactic Republic fleet early on. So, but I don't think have started sort of putting that into action yet. Colosseum rank is pretty good, so they've been able to get into the top 250, which from what I understand is quite a sort of good thing to aim for. Free to play, and have been able to get 100 era currency a day, which is nice. That will help in terms of tokens, be it Carbonite tokens or Erodium tokens. I'm currently working on a video which requires a lot of maths, trying to work out the optimal number of each of the tokens to buy over a certain time period, because I don't think that only buying Carbonite Lightspeed tokens is the answer, because you're just going to create a bottleneck for you in terms of gear 13. But I'm trying to come up with a more definitive answer on maybe how to split it between the tokens, but that's for a separate video that has taken me a long time, because there's a lot of permutations and maths involved in that. So yeah, all that's to say they are getting, that all works out to about 200 crystals a day, about 5,000 Mark II and 3,000 air currency. I think it's these two here that we definitely want to look at improving. This one would be mostly through fleet, and this one would be through raid performance. Another thing to look at would be assault battles, because they are very new. That tends to be a good early focus to get that Zeta income, and also Chirotech, which is still important free to play, and also injector salvage, even for getting characters to gear 13 by finishing the finisher, if that makes sense. So because this is through YouTube, I don't have their exact assault battles, but by having a quick look at their account, they have Phoenix from the Lightspeed tokens. So if they haven't already, I'm pretty confident that they could do both of these, the Rebel and the Phoenix and Night Sister ones at CT1. I've done that on my main account with the Lightspeed tokens and like a gear 12 Kanan. You could probably do it with the Lightspeed token as well. So I'm pretty confident in these two. We'll then have to look at ways of picking these other ones up at CT1, and then maybe in the future one of these as well. But I think that will be quite a big part of the plans, and my recommendations would be how to pick up these assault battles as efficiently as possible by farming other stuff. Obviously no GLs yet, very new account. So let's move on over to their account proper. So I'm just going to quickly go over what they have. Thankfully for me, they haven't been playing for that long, so don't have too many characters at relics, most of which would have been Lightspeed tokens from various sources. But in terms of what they do have and what they have worked on, it looks like they've worked on Relic 7 for Captain Rex and Keller and Beck, which is good, making use of those Lightspeed tokens. Keller and Beck, I'll go into this in a second, but this will be nice for the Order 66 raid when the guild starts doing that. Should be able to score at least 450 depending on mods. I was able to do 600,000 with pretty bad mods, to be honest. So with a bit of trial and error, you might be able to do the 600,000. Also Captain Rex, I think getting ready for Leia there And it's nice to have him at Relic 7 to help with those assault battles just because of Relic Delta. I think because this is a free-to-play account, I wouldn't always take the new Lightspeed tokens you get up to higher relics, but I think the ones you've chosen are very good options because they feed into other ways of getting resources, like through the raid and through assault battles. So I think that's a pretty good start. Mostly other Lightspeed tokens looks like they use the Kyber one on Wampa, which is good. That will feed into Jedi Knight Luke, which will be a good early target that I'll probably put into the plan at the end. Yes, you obviously want the Omicron if you can spare it. A TW Omicron, which is a fun choice. I'm from a TW guild in my main account, so always going to respect that. But I guess selfishly for newer accounts, perhaps JAC. But it's, yeah, if you enjoy TW, that's fun as well. Omicron Wampa obviously already at R6, might get a little bit of Relic Delta advantage, which would be nice. Shakti, a little bit of relics, maybe preparing for the raid as well, potentially, because it doesn't really feed into that many early game farms. I maybe wouldn't push Shakti too much higher. Relic 4 might be enough, maybe Relic 5, and you can maybe start doing stuff with other Jedi Vanguard, the earlier raid tiers. A little bit of investment on Phoenix as well. And yeah, I think the rest are Lightspeed tokens in terms of what you've been farming. Padawan Obi-Wan up to gear 12, Zeta Omicron. Already that should be doing work in Conquest. Obviously you're a little bit off hard mode, but I think you'll probably be able to do medium, normal soon. So that's good. And a few interesting other gear 12s here, like Master Qui-Gon and the Peridia powers as well, which is interesting. So you've already done the Chirotech for these, Radis and Bad Batch as well for the Marauder, for the Endurance fleet that you said you'll be working on. This is one of the main blockers for that. So I think already for the Endurance fleet, let's do that now actually, you will be in a good place to start pushing for that and maybe getting into the top 50. Obviously you'll want to keep, I think, farming the stars. I wouldn't push them to relics yet, but the good thing about the Endurance fleet is we have like Jedi Knight Anakin and Ahsoka as Lightspeed tokens, so, and their ships are really easy to farm. If we hop on over to ships, looks like you have been farming them and have been farming Marauder, which is a good start. And I think also the B-Wing. Yeah, so we'll have a nice foundation. 5s as well, looks like you maybe put a little bit of work into him. These 5 should help, and another one that will help very early on is Houndstooth. This was a little bit tricky because you'll want to wait until later to get Bosk up to relics. But yeah, definitely I'd keep farming the Houndstooth anyway, because I'll go into Executor in a second. But that might be, even low stars, low gear might be an okay one to throw in. But yeah, in terms of attacking in Fleet Arena, I think you're going to soon start to be able to work with these at relics, this with a little bit more investment, and eventually, definitely once this starts to get higher stars, because it's a pilotless ship, it'll start to be more useful as a tank, and this one as well. So hopefully you'll be able to eventually start climbing up into that top 50. It depends on what the fleet shard's like, to be honest, but this would be a nice sort of interim fleet before you get something like the Executor. Let's move back over to the profile or the collection. Is there anything interesting? Yeah, so I think just one comment. Oh, Princess Nisa as well. So looks like we've got a little bit of sort of pointing towards Leia with Princess Nisa. Rex at R7, Captain Jerogan, they use the Rebel Lightspeed token on, which is a great use. So they've got a little bit of a head start for that farm. And also I noticed Hermit Yoda, they use the Jedi Lightspeed token on, which is another good use because that saves on a lot of get one. So they've already saved on Hermit Yoda and Wampa, which are needed for Jedi Knight Luke and then for Jabba. So yeah, pretty nice choices with the Lightspeed tokens, I would say. There's nothing really that's jumping out as a bad choice. I think they're all pretty good. The only thing is I'm noticing a lot of Gear 12s, which I'm assuming are potentially Lightspeed tokens or just farming, like the Kyrotech one. I think that is a good choice, but I think there comes a point of diminishing returns in terms of getting these characters to Gear 12 using those Carbonite Lightspeed tokens, because in the grand scheme of things, maybe they might help with very low level GAC, but beyond that, they're just not going to be that useful, mainly due to Relic Delta now. So it might be at the point you've already got a nice foundation with them, I think very useful Gear 12s, to, even though it's going to take a long time, maybe just start saving up that era currency again, just because it's going to take you a long time to work on these and get characters to relics. I'm not too sure how many relics that you've done already, perhaps not any in terms of just getting to Gear 13 without the Lightspeed token, but I think that's definitely going to be something to focus on and maybe start saving that era currency, even though it's going to take a long time. I think you've already got enough of a good collection of Gear 12s, but that's a personal choice as well, depending on what you enjoy. Yeah, so let's actually hop into some of the, I think, the relevant farms which I have saved up here. So I'm going to start with the Executor, because I think that, I mean, that's the typical first farm even before all of these Lightspeed tokens came into existence, was go for the Executor first. I think that's still largely true, but the difference being is there's now an optimal time to go for the Executor, and that is when the Beskar Armor Mandalorian Lightspeed token comes out at the end of April. So there's a little bit of, not like a block, but there's an optimal time to go for it. You want to wait for those tokens to come out to take advantage of them. But also, doesn't look like there's any progress on the Razor Crest so far, and that is another thing that will take a while. On the account that I've just started, I think I'm at nearly about 100 shards after 1 month. Sorry, after 2 months of farming the Razor Crest. So if we extrapolate that out, it's probably not going to be until like late April, May that I actually unlock the Razor Crest. Now I am only doing, typically I'm only checking the store 3 times a day, just the way my payouts work is an alt account for me. I just can't check it every single time, all 4 times, so I might be getting a little bit less shards. But I definitely, I assume you are already, but I definitely keep farming the Razor Crest. In terms of other ships, definitely a good idea to keep going with the Bounty Hunter ships for the Executor and also for Jedi Knight Luke, because you need the Millennium Falcon to unlock that. And I think you are getting there towards Jedi Knight Luke already with the Lightspeed tokens. So it looks like you are, but definitely continue with farming these ships. The good thing is they won't really overlap that much with your Galactic Republic farming. I think maybe only the Y-Wing is normal energy, and I think all 3 of these, or maybe these 2 are normal energy. This one you can pick up from the Fleet Store, this one you could just pick up from Galactic War, and this one either Galactic War but definitely Fleet Store. So not that many. And also farm, if you haven't already, Xanadu Blood and the Punishing One on the side as well, which are pretty much necessary for the fleet. In terms of characters, so nothing started, but that's not a bad thing, because these 4 bounty hunters will all be Lightspeed tokens by the end of March, so just saving up a little bit of relics. Admiral Piet, I would probably recommend using the Lightspeed token on him. Scout Trooper is the other option for Leia, but I think for an account like this, you'd probably want to prioritize Executor before Leia. Maybe it's the sort of thing you can save and then apply it on the thing you're going to get first, but I think I'm probably going to recommend going for Executor first, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Darth Vader, looks like you've started a bit. I think Darth Vader would make a lot of sense as your first relic that isn't a lightspeed token, and I'll go into that in a bit when I go through the assault battles. But you're going to want for Executor anyway, and I think can do some work for some of the assault battles that you don't have at CT1, especially if you can get him up to Relic 7, and then Relic Delta really kicks in, you get a couple of Zetas, and I think you could be good, and then just farming this. So there's really only 2 Relic farms, so the Executor is just a case of waiting really until sort of April-May time in order to unlock, which means we can pencil it in there in the plan and then sort of work around it, what comes before it, what comes afterwards. The other big target, of course, for most new accounts and definitely free to play, will be Leia, and it looks like you've got an eye on that already with your use of lightspeed tokens on Nisa and Captain Drogon, which are both very good options. I think 2 Kyrotech characters out of the way. The difficult thing with Leia, and why it might be kind of tricky just to go straight for her, is Rebel Officer Leia Organa. You might be close. It all depends on your guild, essentially. You are only doing the Hoth territory battles, which might be a good thing because you're guaranteed to be doing the Rebel Officer Leia special mission once a month for quite a while. But it depends on how well your guild commits to doing that special mission. If I were your officers or in that guild, I would maybe suggest, because it's one of the Hoth Rebel troopers, either Scout or the Soldier, I think. I'd check which one's which, but you need one of them at, I think, 5-star or 4-star, and then you could just stick them in like the Phoenix team that everyone will have as part of the lightspeed tokens, and you could just get everybody getting a shard of Rolo each time, getting 40 to 50 shards each time. So if the guild really commits, you could get Leia quite quickly, and then you'd be looking at these 3 will be lightspeed tokens: Droid, Bounty Hunter 1, potentially not this one if you use it on Piet, but lightspeed token, and then you are looking at essentially lightspeed token as well. So 6 relics, which is considerable for an account like this. But if you feel like you can get Leia quite early, might be a good one to push for, either to unlock just before Executor or just after. The thing is, what I do is I'd make sure that you're on track to unlock Executor as early as possible, because that's going to be the most important for your fleet income. But alongside that, I think you're definitely going to be able to work on the Leia farm, which is really great. Other things just to keep in mind: so Jedi Knight look, you've made a good start with your selection of lightspeed tokens, and if we look at what's needed for Executor and for Leia, Lando, Captain Han, Rolo, Commander Luke all needed for Leia, Darth Vader needed for Executor, and I think would be worthwhile farming him up early. So you'd really only need C-3PO, because Chewbacca will be a lightspeed token at the end of March, and you unlock C-3PO just by farming Leia because of the 3 Ewoks. So it's a sort of nice, you'll just pretty much pick this up anyway. You'll need the bounty hunter ships for the Falcon, but you'll be working on those anyway for Executor. So it's another thing to add into that, like from March, April sort of region to pick up Jedi Knight Luke, and that will help with an assault battle a lot. So, and all fits quite nicely, and then it will lead on to the longer term goal of Jabba, who will of course take a lot longer because there's not an awful lot of lightspeed tokens we currently have for him, just like Fennec, Boba, Bausch for Leia, and then aside from that, it'll be quite a long farm. C3PO stuff, like if you work in Jedi Knight Look, you'll have C3PO, but will be quite a long one. So definitely worth, like, once you get like Executor, Leia, Jedi Knight Look, then maybe start to begin that process, just because it'll help so much with mods. But by that time, we might be like, we've been getting so many Lightspeed tokens that there might be, let's say, like another Bounty Hunter Lightspeed token in the episode track, or a Hut Cartel Lightspeed token, or a Tusken Lightspeed token, or just more of the general ones. So I think definitely by the time you start really focusing on Jabba, you'll be closer than you might think. Yeah, so that's it in terms of the main focuses. I am going to hop back into your account to quickly go over quick assault battle wins. Okay, so first up, Poncho Bros. You've clearly been farming them for the stars. You have them at gear 12. So at this point, I think it'll make sense to work on them quite early. Yes, it'll require a little bit of investment in terms of relics, and you don't have that much Mark II income at the moment, but because a lot of the farms are not going to be ready until like at least 3 months from now anyway, maybe makes sense to focus on these early as like a nice easy short-term target, obviously for their assault battle, but also for helping maybe in the Jedi assault battle, and also for conquest. Having a relic Padawan Obi-Wan will be nice when you start doing like normal conquest and eventually hard conquest. Again, relic Delta, you've already got his Omicron. Definitely makes sense to continue that investment that you've already made. And then also we have actually, let me hop over to that graphic just quickly. Yep, so we have Ground War, I think will be covered with, to begin with, Kelleran Beck and the other Jedi you have. Eventually Jedi Knight Look will take that up to CT3, but I think in the short term you should be able to look at maybe getting CT1. And I also mentioned Duel of the Fates, so we'd be looking at Fanatical Devotion. We'll be getting those Lightspeed tokens out soon. I maybe wouldn't focus on Grand Inquisitor just because it's going to be so expensive. If you can do CT1 with just what we're given, maybe adding Relic 5 to a few if you can. I'm sure people, when they come out, will do guides and stuff to see if that can be done. So that might be another CT1. We'd be looking at the one for Sith, which is this one, the one for Empire, and the one for Bounty Hunters or Imperial Troopers. So let's hop back to the account. Yep. So we'll go for Sith first. First Order obviously won't really be an option for this account. So you already have Emperor Palpatine 7 stars because of the Lightspeed token. So maybe a few relics on him. The big one will probably be Darth Vader once you get to relic 7 for the Executor with relic Delta, and then whatever Sith I think you can pick up, I think you'd be able to do some good work there. In terms of ones to do, just the easiest farms, like currency farms, like Mo. I think this is Galactic War, Dooku as well. I'd try get it done with basically these two as like the powerhouse, and then throw in whatever Sith, and you should hopefully be able to do CT1. This might be a slightly later priority, but I think with a relic 7 Darth Vader, and maybe we get like a Sith Lightspeed token or something, which would be good, you could do it. But I think Darth Vader will be the key for this one, and also for Empire. So I'm going to remove this. So it is possible to do, well, it's very possible to do the Empire Assault Battle, the Forest Moon one with Imperial Troopers. But one of the main things I've learned from starting a new account and Relic Delta is that it's a lot easier, or more easier than ever before, to do assault battles with not the best teams in the world, and I think just initially aiming for CT1 is good. So again, very much like the Sith, you'd, I think, be able to do it with just Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader, relics and with the Zetas and Darth Vader, especially if he's at 7. I was able to do it with Grand Moff Tarkin at relics, but that I don't think that would even be necessary. I had like a gear 10 Thrawn as well, so I think just by taking Darth Vader up to relics, a little bit on Palpatine as well, maybe you've already got a gear 12 Tarkin, that one should also be covered once Darth Vader is at relics, which leaves the final one, which is the Bounty Hunter and Imperial Trooper one. This is similar in that I think it might not be worth to focus on Imperial Troopers. I think it's a good option because you could eventually get them to CT3, but with Relic Delta you'd probably need to put relics on them, which might not be completely worth it. So what you could do instead is essentially wait for the Bounty Hunter Lightspeed tokens, and you'll need to work on them anyway for Executor, and you'd be able to do it with Bosk, IG-88, Boba for sure, and I forget who else, somebody else that you get for Executor. I think you maybe also get Fennec as a token. Yes, you do get Dengar, let me check that. Yep, I always forget this. So yeah, you get the 4 Executor requirements, and you also get Fennec and Chewbacca, of course, as the legendary. Yep, so this would be another one. Essentially, you wouldn't have to do anything extra aside from what you're already working on, which I like. So you'll be able to get those 3 assault battles I mentioned, the Sith, the Empire, and the Bounty Hunter ones, by mainly Executor requirements, to be honest, and maybe a little bit of like 7-starring characters, getting some up to gear like 11 or 12, that sort of thing. But with quite low investment, I think you're going to be able to hit CT1 in most assault battles, which would be fantastic. The last thing I want to check in the count is your guild, which is up here, Return of the People, which looks like a brand new guild. So yeah, still doing the Sith raid, I guess, well yeah, brand new, just end of December there. But yeah, I'd really be, if you can, let's have a look. Are you like an officer or something in your guild? You are an officer, so you do have potentially some influence. Things that I would be pushing for would be Order 66. I think you're maybe already doing that, judging by just the investment that you have in those characters. So if we go to units, let's look at Kelleran Beck, obviously 42. Maybe try get that up to 47, given it is free. I guess maybe some people are like brand new and maybe just don't even have the teams to unlock him yet. But already a lot of high relics, so yeah, I'm thinking maybe the call has already been made to focus on Kelleran Beck here. A lot, like over half, I think, have been moved up to at least relic 5. So if like just everybody gets 450k, you'd be able to hit the 20 million box, which would be enough to max out your Mark II and also get a little bit of Mark III for Order 66. So yeah, that definitely seems like the way forward. I think your guild is probably already doing that, judging by the investment. And then also things like Shaq T, maybe picking up some of the other Jedi Vanguard. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, just this is the guild, this isn't you. If we go to Jedi, yeah, so a nice pickup might be already have him at 7 stars. If you find yourself with Spirit Omicrons, Qui-Gon Jinn will be a nice add. You might be able to do some work on the lowest tier in the raid with him and Shaq T, definitely at relics, and then maybe like one other, like Plo. You'd probably want Plo actually anyway for your Galactic Republic fleet. So, and he's a very easy farm. Maybe get just Plo up to 7 stars, and maybe someone like Ayla, Sakura, or just someone to throw in there, and you might be able to do some work. But also Omicron and Qui-Gon, because you're going to be having a lot of higher relic Jedi. So it's a nice little trap to lay in early GAC. So yeah, that is good. So yeah, good direction from the guild. The other thing I would mention is, and actually let me just check something. Yeah, so I was just checking that special mission in territory battles. So it is Hoth Rebel Soldier at 5 stars to do the special mission that gets Rebel Officer Leia Organa shards. I think that could be another thing to maybe nudge people in the guild, because I would guess most people would want to go for Leia quite soon and Jedi Knight Luke, just because of the lightspeed tokens. It's now a very good early game free to play farm, so you could be doing everyone in the guild a big favor by everyone just getting Hoth Rebel Soldier to 5 stars, which is like, he's normal energy farm, but he also appears in like the Bronzium packs that you could do every day for free with that silver currency. I forget what it is, ally points. So people might just naturally start to get him anyway, but everyone should have a Phoenix team. So let's have a look. What do we have? Yeah, a lot of 5 stars already, including yourself. So that'd be another thing. If you aren't already, maybe already are, you seem like quite an organized guild, would be to just say, hey, maybe get him to 5 stars. We can get everyone free Rebel Officer Leia shards, because we're going to be doing light side Hoth for quite a wee while, and everyone should really go for Leia. So that could be a nice little option. So yeah, that's it in terms of the account. I'm now just going to jump to a little comparison actually. Let's do that now. Cool. So yeah, I've taken the stats of my account and this account that I'm reviewing. This isn't, when I put this together, I was like, oh, this seems like I'm bragging maybe, but honestly, this player did suggest this. So, and I do think it'd be an interesting comparison in terms of what does spending actually get you, I guess. What's the difference? What's the extra challenge of going free to play? So obviously there's quite a big difference in terms of GP. I think part of that will be I have bought 3 lightspeed bundles, and that they're usually like, that's probably like 600,000 or something. But then just like the more I get, like double the lightspeed tokens from the episode track, because I buy the episode pass, obviously more Erodium lightspeed tokens, and just more access to like relic material and stuff like that. And I think one of the big differences is probably I'm focusing more on ships early, because I've been given ships through the lightspeed bundles. So I think that's why there's quite a big difference there. Obviously I'm slightly bigger guild, but these things can change quickly. Mod score is an interesting one. They actually have a higher mod score than me. I did since change this, and it is 0.9 as we speak, not to brag or anything, but I think this just shows you that, not the downside, but the slight challenge of like lightspeed bundles and stuff like that, is you do grow your account maybe too quick for other things to keep up, like mods and zetas, which I think this kind of demonstrates, because we've got very similar mod scores. Obviously I will have more mods just because I'm probably doing more refreshes, but I've got more characters I need to put them on, so it kind of cancels out. Guild, now this is I think quite a big difference. You can see I've got not quite double, but nearly there in terms of the Mark II, so that's a big difference in terms of relics, and that's just being able to join a bigger guild earlier on, just that because I've spent more money essentially, and also like the Mark III as well. And crystals is maybe actually the biggest, because I got the finalizer bundle, I got good fleets, and then I was able to focus on home one, and that has just been, I think that's just more difficult to do free to play, because everyone else will have bought those lightspeed bundles, and even just the hyperdrive bundle will help. So at the start when you're free to play, I think you tend to have a lot of catching up to do in terms of fleet, which is quite a big challenge, because you're just getting less crystals, so that can be quite a difficult thing free to play. But they do seem to be working on the endurance, and I think maybe the executor in the future. So yeah, just thought that do a little comparison. This is not to say one's better than the other, but I think just like an interesting side by side. And for context, at the time of making this, I've spent £130 in those 2 months, so I guess that's the what £130 gets you in difference. So yeah, I'm now going to quickly put together a quick plan. Okay, so here we are with a quick little plan that I put together. I like to work in a sort of six month window and not go too far into the future, because we don't really know what will be changing. So to begin with, I feel I've done this for most accounts, but we're getting the Inquisitorious Lightspeed tokens. If you can, don't take them all up to Relic 5 straight away. Maybe wait, see what other people do when their assault battle drops, and then try and min-max that potentially at CT1, maybe with a few Relic 5, that sort of thing. And also, I think you have made a lot of progress already with these guys, so it makes sense, I think, to finish that and make them some of your first relics. You'll be able to drop them into some Jedi teams that you have as well, so will be useful outside of their assault battle, and should also help with that other Jedi sort of older assault battle. And then things get a little bit, I guess, trickier or more fluid, because we're working with certain timelines. I think the one we want to work back from is Executor. So I put it in April. In reality, the date you'd be looking for will most likely be May the 15th, and that is because the final Lightspeed token, which will be for Beskar armor, will come out at the end of April. So the next Executor event will probably be May the 15th, but I put in April just, I think, to nudge it ahead of these other two, just to show priority, because I think this will be your priority for getting that good crystal income. All of these farms are good, but fleets are really the most important thing. So it's all about just making sure you are ready for Executor when it comes. I think it's worthwhile farming Darth Vader very soon, because he will help with, I think, 2 other assault battles, especially if he's at Relic 7. And then the other requirement would be TIE Fighter, but also Cad Bane for his ship, and then just make sure to farm Xanadu Blood and Punishing One. So that, I think, is if I was doing this would be the date I'm working around. So things I put before it, I wouldn't want to like push this back any further, because I'd want to unlock this as soon as possible. But obviously that leaves a lot of space here in the first 3 months of the year, because there's really not that much to do to unlock Executor. So after you've, I think, got what I would say are the quick wins for the assault battles, so maybe 2 with Darth Vader, a couple with these guys, then I'd actually start to focus on the long-term farming for Leia, which will be the most difficult farm. The thing that will really be pushing Leia back will be Rolo, as I mentioned, who is a more difficult farm. So that's why I put her a little bit further back, just because I really wouldn't recommend using Mark II raid currency if you can avoid it on farming Rolo shards. I'd try to do that as much as possible just through the territory battle special mission, and any get to that you start to get, I'd use it, just because you're already quite tight for Mark II, and you'd want to use that for relic in the characters. So Rolo will most likely take a while. Lightspeed token on Bausch from the Bounty Hunter one, farm up Scout Trooper, or use the Lightspeed token on him, but then you can't use it on Piet. So I'll leave you to decide. I'd put it on Piet just because his Zetas would be more helpful for you probably. Scout Trooper, you really need his Imperial Remnant team to make, or her, sorry, to make use of her, and it'd just be a case of slowly working away on the layer requirements, but making sure you're still ready to unlock Executor, and then go after Leia straight after. Or even if you see a window to do it before, again, I don't know what other Lightspeed tokens come out and it could be that you get Rolo soon. If you're able to unlock Leia before, of course, go for it, but don't push back Executor to do so, would be my advice. And then straight after Leia, you will be pretty much there with Luke. You just need to add relics to C-3PO. I was going to put Luke earlier, but then I realized you're also going to just be waiting on Rebel Officer Leia Organa, so there's no point putting him in like March or February when you probably wouldn't have unlocked a Rolo by that time anyway. And then as for most accounts, we'll have like that Mandalorian Lightspeed token. May as well just sort of round out a nice strong starting lineup by picking up one other requirement, probably IG-12, and getting Bo as well, just as an all-round team eventually for territory battles. But I think would be just a nice easy farm to get. But then I think afterwards the long term should start to switch to Jabba. You would have already have covered some of his requirements, but there's a lot of other not so great characters that you have to farm, so that'll probably take a while longer. So yeah, that's the plan there. Obviously just a suggestion, but let me know your thoughts, and thank you very much for letting me have a look at your roster, and I'll see you next time. Alright, so I'm here with the next roster review, and that is for Guttural. So a little bit of context on their account before we start. So they are a light spender. I think they mentioned elsewhere about $10 a month. Not planning on any more Lightspeed bundles for now until they get a raise at work. Very sensible. In terms of their plans, currently working towards a few journey guides, finishing so KR, Alt, Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, Jabba, and then finishing off some Lightspeed token unlocks, Bo-Katan Mandalore, and the Poncho Bros. All looks really good to me. For some other context, it looks like they're just coming off a bit of a break and Lightspeed bundle hangover. I assume this means they maybe purchased a lot of them and are just working through them. I feel that. I'm looking for advice on how to tighten up the accounts, spread around mods, resources, open to spending a little bit more. And also they just recently said this, with the new mall event, they're actually interested in pushing to, it would be 4 stars for the 2 Kyber Lightspeed tokens, which would, I believe, involve purchasing a couple of episode passes and some crystals maybe for the characters they missed. So yeah, that's good context to know. And they also have an Ufru Lightspeed token, a lot of episode currency and some era currency. And yeah, their plan for next era is to purchase the episode pass and spend on crystals to push up rank early. So yep, that all sounds good. Let's jump into the details. So this is their account summary. Have been playing for about 300 days. I think they said they took a couple of months break, which wouldn't be reflected in this day count because this is sort of active days usually. Their GP is 4.4 million, so that's notable in that they would have probably just have started hard mode conquest. They are part of TC Packwolves, which is quite a big 300 million guild. Interestingly about this guild is in my guild's alliance. It's a bigger guild than I'm in. I am in, they recently changed name, like the TEDF that or something like that I don't know what that stands for. But yeah, so I'm in a smaller guild in this overall alliance. So yeah, good to review someone sort of related to my guild, if not in it. So mod score about 2 for both. Considering they purchased a lot of Lightspeed bundles, I think this is actually reasonable. Of course it's an area to work on, but they have mentioned Jabba in their plans, and I suspect they're very well aware of wanting to improve mod quality. In terms of raid performance, that is, I'd say, pretty good. 70 million, which I think is like box 6 or 7, something like that. They're hitting 1.5 million, which is pretty much the average for their guild. I think both of these are in a pretty good place. Probably not something they're too interested in pushing at this point, or there's probably not too much point in pushing either. I also know from being in the Sim Alliance that I think this guild is on a pretty hot TW win streak, so maybe they're starting to get some droid brains and stuff through that. I don't know what you get at 300 million exactly, but maybe they're getting some resources through TW as well. In terms of their own performance, so Carbonite 1, they have just rejoined after a break, so I suspect they're maybe a little bit higher. Like obviously they'll be moving up to Bronzium, but this is probably a Bronzium level GAC account. Fleet rank top 5, which is great. Colosseum rank 200, which is 100 a day. They have said they're interested in trying to push this up a little bit. Obviously that's not something we can really focus on in a roster review because the era units are isolated from the rest of the roster, but we can maybe talk about general advice for that. Crystal income is good because of their fleet placement. Mark II is really good because I had a look and this guild is doing the raid every either 6 or 7 days, so I just called it 6.5 days in the calculation, which translates to 12,000 Mark II, so that's very good. That's nearly the best you can get. I think they can maybe, there's a little bit more you can get from the personal rewards, so maybe another few hundred you can extract through there, but yeah, 12,000 a day is very good, and a good healthy amount of Mark III as well, which is great because I think a lot of their plans don't involve relic 8s or 9s, so they should have a nice steady supply of this building up to maybe apply on some interesting characters. Hint, I'm thinking these guys in the not too distant future, just because they've got quite a good supply of high relic material thanks to their guild's performance. Moving on over to assault battles, so have all but one of the original ones at CT1. I think we're maybe at the point in the account where you're wanting to start to push these up a little bit. I think some will naturally get pushed up due to things they're already planning on unlocking, but maybe there's a little bit of investment that can be done here. Jewel of the Fates, they I think just have got them at relic 5, but I don't think had done the assault battle by the time they submitted, but are planning on getting them to R7, so this one should be R7 pretty soon. No progress on Peridia Patrol, and none of their resource GLs yet, but they are very much thinking about Jabba. So yeah, without further ado, let's move on to the account proper. Alright, so this is their account here. I think I just wanted to, I don't normally do this, but head on over to their profile just to show their quite epic JAC win streak. This is perhaps due to joining in the last couple months after a break, but even still I think shows they could be a bit higher ranked, just need a little bit more time. High fleet placement as well with Executor, which is great to see, which doesn't make fleet an immediate concern. Always good to be working on fleets, of course, but not 100% necessary. So they said they're just finishing off the ult for Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, I assume after getting the assault battle. So that's, yeah, nothing really to comment there apart from you'll just have a very good GL team pretty much ready to go. You've asked about shoring up your existing account in terms of like mods and relics. Potentially R8 Supreme Leader Kylo Ren if you have some spare higher relic material could be nice. I've done it on my account. It's probably not the most necessary thing in the world, but you're never really going to waste relics on a GL like SWGOH, and yeah, just even more dominates. For every GAC match I just take in solo SWGOH and get max banners, so that could be a potential option if you have like the relics from like the Christmas and anniversary gifts just sort of sitting there. That could be a good use. In terms of other things, they mentioned getting Bo-Katan up to relic 7, which looks like they now have done. Perhaps bought the Lightspeed bundle for them, but looks like everything's rounded off, yeah, with all of the Zetas and everything. There may be one more needed for Bo-Katan and an Omicron, but that one looks like it's pretty much done. We'll just have a quick look. Looks like they're modding them as well, which is great. Other bits and pieces in their account, they mentioned they are looking to fill in after purchasing a lot of Lightspeed bundles, but there's not a huge amount of gaps that are jumping out to me, because things like the SWGOH Lightspeed bundle, there's not really a good second team you can make from that. They are working on good standalone things like Padawan, Obi-Wan and Master Qui-Gon. Phoenix, you could be looking at getting Captain Rex up to R7, who's needed for Leia and is a great sort of R7 and sort of Relic Delta option to have in the team. One thing that does stand out to me is potentially CLS doing a similar thing in preparing for Leia in the future by giving maybe a little bit more relics to CLS. Chewbacca isn't a Leia requirement, but is a JML requirement, so maybe a little bit more relics to the CLS team Jabba requirement. And also I think, yeah, so Han Solo could be a good relic. 3PO and Chewie, I would wait until the droid Lightspeed token if you can. And the reason I'm saying this is, yes, there'll be a good team in GAC and sort of Bronzium, but you have just hit 4 million, and having CLS in your back pocket for Conquest, a decent relic level, could be quite nice. Aside from that, there's not too many other, I mean, maybe just like taking the Phoenix team up to Relic 3. I wouldn't go too much higher at the moment, just because, yeah, just where you are in GAC and stuff, I don't think it would pay to have a Relic 5 or even Relic 7 Phoenix team. And there's nothing really else standing out to me, I don't think, in terms of just bumping up relics. Oh, this is a fun one. Looks like you have the Jedi Knight Revan Lightspeed bundle with Mission in Zalbar. I wonder if, yeah, I'm going to put it on my list to have a wee look at the Darth Revan farm actually, but we can do that later on. I just want to have a quick look at ships before we move on to the GLs. So they have Executor, looks like they bought the Bad Batch Lightspeed bundle, so I have Marauder, and because of that wanted to check on their Galactic Republic fleet. Yep, so Negotiator, they probably, yeah, they could either run Negotiator or Endurance depending. Maybe getting relics onto General Kenobi. I don't know how useful that would be. I'd maybe just try make do with what you have with Negotiator, and maybe use Endurance so you already have Mace Windu at relics and 3 Zetas. Farm this ship, of course, which you're probably already doing. 5s could be a potential rogue relic because that fleet can be handy, but this would really just be for GAC performance because you already have Executor, so I wouldn't worry too much about focusing on this. In terms of GLs and journey guides, let's have a look at that now. So the first one is Jedi Knight Luke, who you mentioned you're working on, and you are pretty much done. It is just Captain Han Solo relics that you would need, so I imagine you are a week away at most from Jedi Knight Luke, and he would be a great option just to take up to Relic 7 straight away. So he'll be a nice leader for all of the Jedi that you have collected at this point, and will help get CT3 of that Jedi Assault Battle Ground War. There's a bit of a trick to it, but just search for it on YouTube. I'm sure you'll be able to find a good guide for that. Yeah, so this one's pretty much done, to be honest. You also mentioned Jabba, so not too much progress so far in Jabba. There's a few Gear 12s on the go. Of course, quite a few of these will be Lightspeed tokens, so Fennec, either Bausch or Chrysanthemum. I'd maybe at this point recommend the Bounty Hunter Lightspeed token for Chrysanthemum, or Kursatan. I might have been saying that completely wrong, apologies, because he is a Kyrotech character. But you sort of done the Kyrotech, and it's just a sort of ragtag bunch of relics that you would need to get up. So this one won't be possible straight away. The blocker may be Outrider. I'm not sure how much you have farmed there, but if you haven't started farming Outrider, that would be 3 months if you refresh, about 6 months if you don't refresh. So I guess keep that in mind for the Jabba farm, which might mean maybe Jabba gets pushed back a little bit while you're working on this, but you'll have Jedi Knight Luke already, so pretty doable, but maybe not in the short term. I also wanted to check on Leia. So because you've worked on Jedi Knight Luke already, you already have a lot of progress. Looks like a lightspeed token on Captain Jorgen was used. So it would be a case of using a lightspeed token on Scout Trooper, R2-D2, and Akbar. So you'd be looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 relics, and maybe 6 as well for Bausch. So this was a little bit more in the short term. Maybe it might be possible to farm this before Jabba. Of course, Jabba would be more valuable because of the Smuggler's Run event, so I'll maybe think about that when putting the plan together. And of course there's a little bit of overlap with Bausch, and you do have some lightspeed tokens that you mentioned that you have, so we can maybe look at maybe where to use those. I also wanted to just check a few others, ones that I normally check just to see progress on key characters. Baylan Skoll, not really any progress so far. It's always a nice one to keep in mind, mainly for the Great Mothers, but it looks like there's not too much progress in this one. Starkiller, likewise. Mara Jade, no real relic progress, but perhaps all of the Chirotech. This could be a nice... So at this point I maybe wouldn't use the Underlined Force User token that you mentioned you have on Mara Jade, just because you've already made some progress, especially in terms of stars. I mean, it could still be worthwhile. What I'm thinking for Mara Jade is you're still a little bit off Starkiller, but you have Emperor Palpatine, Darth Vader, and this could be a kind of fun one if you are able to get, which you will, Darth Vader Duel's End through the marquee, because you're buying the episode pass. You'll be able to get him at gear 12. So it might be a fun one to throw in there, and when he becomes farmable, bump him up to relics. Actually, you'll be able to take him up to relics. I think relic, I don't know, 3 or 4 stars. I'm not too sure on that, but that could be a fun, like relic delta might be an issue, but that might be a fun little side farm if he's already at gear 12 and you have Mara Jade just to work on that. But it's probably not the most important thing in the world, but might be a nice use of what you already have on the roster, because that team I think will be very good, because Darth Vader is an elite marquee, will have a couple of Omicrons, so especially at lower level GAC you're probably going to get a lot of use out of him even at lower relics, even before he's 7-star. So maybe just something to think about. Jedi Master Luke, because you've started Jedi Knight Luke already, a lot of progress on this, but still a fair bit of work to do on this one. And Profundity, I guess, yeah, really not any progress on this one. So yeah, let's hop back to the account. But actually I think it would be worth checking just quickly on Darth Revan, which I mentioned. I just pulled this up real quick. That could be maybe a nice little side farm. Potentially he does pop up as Lightspeed bundle occasionally as well, just because I notice you have Mission and Zalbar could be a potential use. Again, like the Darth Vader Duel's End, this is very much a very niche nice to have. You eventually want him for Leviathan, but it just popped to my mind because of what you already have on the roster, but definitely not necessary. You already have HK and Juhani at 7 stars, and you wouldn't have to relic them, so could be a fun option, but not necessary. It did give me the idea actually that, because obviously next conquest character will be Satio Shan, and you do have that Jedi Knight Revan Lightspeed bundle, which is I think the majority of her team, including Jedi Knight Revan. Yeah, I think these 4 and Juhani as well potentially in team. So you have just reached 4 million. I suspect looking at your current roster, you may struggle to hit the sort of box 5 needed, just because Of course, SOKR is a good GL. He's not the best conquest GL in the world, mainly because his team likes to die, especially when there's turn meter involved, which quite often there is with conquest data discs. But it might be worth just having a real good go at conquest with teams like Bo-Katan, maybe. Jedi Knight Luke, when you unlock him with Padawan Obi-Wan, should be a pretty potent combination. Phoenix, but apart from that, there's not really too much, and I think that's why a nice focus will be on things like Leia, Jabba as well, in order to really get you a strong foundation in conquest. Because, like, for example, Satele Shan, I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly, not a sort of Old Republic fan of those games, but that would be a really nice addition to an account like this, because you already have Old Republic characters, so it's just about being ready for when those useful conquest characters drop. So that, I think that is something I'm going to keep in mind, just in terms of how can we strengthen this roster in terms of conquest. Other things I wanted to check is with the guild. I always like to check for some important guild farms, and I, to be honest, probably could just go into the guild Discord, but I wanted to check Jedi Knight Cal Kestis. Okay, so not too much of a focus so far. Maybe that might become a guild directive. I don't know. If it does, then you did ask about that Ufu Lightspeed token. If this is... Oh, this guy... I swear this guy, I think he's like my guild leader and must have like so many accounts. He seems to be in here as well. Yeah, so if Jedi Knight Cal Kestis is a push in the guild, then Seer Junda would be a good use of that Ufu Lightspeed token. And then you've got all of that other era currency, which you could use on Gear 12 for the other ones, which I'm just bringing up now. So yeah, obviously no progress yet, but Lightspeed token on Seer Junda because she's needed at Relics from the mission, and then the Carbonite Lightspeed tokens, to be honest, on the other ones. And that would be a sort of 3-month farm just in the background. Could be a nice addition, and given what you're farming already, sort of Jabba Executor, potentially Leia, Jedi Master Luke won't be too far in the future either, and nice to have Jedi Knight Cal Kestis ready. So that could be a good option of the Ufu Lightspeed token. I guess we could maybe look at some other options. If we hop back on over to your account, look at unaligned Force users. Mara Jade, the only reason I'd be hesitant to recommend her is, looks like you've probably done the Chirotech, but it's up to you in terms of what are the main bottlenecks in your account. If it is getting things to Gear 13, then I think it's still a valid use, even though she's already Gear 11 with some Chirotech. But if that's not an issue, then I think Surgeon might be the best option here. Potentially, if you wanted to go down the sort of Great Mother's Balin route, then one of these two, probably Marok. But knowing what I know so far, probably Surgeon, I would say. So in terms of other stuff, I wanted to have a quick look at Imperial Troopers, because I mentioned earlier that you're at CT1 for most of the assault battles, but you might be at the point of wanting to start to push that a little bit. So yeah, you already have Admiral Piet at Relic 8 for Executor, so that's going to do a lot of work Relic Delta wise. I do think that Scout Trooper will be in your future and will probably be the best use of that Empire Lightspeed token that we'll get at the end of this month, just because you're reasonably close to Leia, and then it would be a case of other options. But yeah, I guess the issue is that with Relic Delta, is this going to be worth it, because there's not that many other good requirement characters. Yeah, so I guess only 2 would be at Relics. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to change my mind a bit live on using Imperial Troopers to push for assault battles, because you're already going for Jabba, so that will eventually be the CT3 done for the Bounty Hunter one. For the Empire one, that might be harder. You might be able to push to CT2 in the meantime. Maybe some remodding might be needed, but you already have a good, where are they? A good collection. Piet already at Relicate. Maybe if you go the Mara Jade option, that might be enough to get to CT2, just because it synergizes so well with Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader, with Emperor Palpatine mainly, and you'll have a nice Relic Delta advantage. So actually I'm not going to recommend Imperial Troopers, I don't think. In terms of other options, oh yeah, the other assault battle would of course be the Places of Power one, and that will just be with the Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, which you can do at CT3, but it will be manual. You should be able to do with as they are at the moment. Just look up some videos. You have to maybe mod Kylo Ren unmasked for a lot of health, but you should be able to do that challenge tier 3 on manual. It is a pain, you don't have to do it, but it is possible. That would be the main option there. And then the other ones, you'll start to close off with other things like Jedi Knight Luke. I mentioned working on CLS and maybe even Leia in the future. That will help for the Rebel one. For the Night Sister one, that would probably require Great Mothers, but I'm going to have to think about whether that's a suitable farm. The last thing in terms of the roster I wanted to have a think about is the other lightspeed tokens you mentioned. So you have 5,000 era currency. One option, of course, as I've mentioned, is the Jedi Knight Cal Kestis thing, but that really depends on, is your guild pushing for that? If they are, that's probably a good option together with the UFU token. If not, then we'll maybe assume that will be an Erodium Lightspeed token. We'll maybe pop on over to like the journeys you're working on. Good options could be not a lot in terms of Jabba, because you already have the Chirotech done for these guys, but if you really wanted to push and speed it along, just like Aura Sing or something at this point, it doesn't really matter as long as they're at least R5, which I think is, yeah, Greedo or Sing, probably Aura Sing, because she might also be a Cantina farm from memory. So yeah, maybe her if you want to go for Jabba. For Leia, there's actually not a lot of good options because you already have quite a few at Gear 12 already. Yeah, and I think this would be a Lightspeed token, this would be a Lightspeed token, so maybe not for Leia. Yeah, so maybe something like Aura Sing, or the other option would be, you also mentioned those other Kyber Lightspeed tokens that you're thinking about getting by doing the 4-star Maul unlock, which, let's just check your active era units. So, okay, so it looks like you have worked on, maybe through crystals, or you already had this. You've got Stormtrooper Luke and Yoda and Chewie up to, and Asajj, sorry. Yeah, so really just be a case of, you said you're going to buy it next month, and then it would just be crystals on IG. So yeah, you're pretty much there for that 4-star unlock. So we can assume you're getting those 2 Kyber Lightspeed tokens. Good uses of that would be if you pair that with the Erodium Lightspeed token you're getting. If we hop on over, why am I so bad at the alphabet? Always Imperial Remnant. So of course you have the Peridia Patrol Lightspeed Assault Battle. So if you wanted to use that on them, probably Kyber Lightspeed token on these 2 and Erodium on this one, because you already have at 7 stars. But I actually think, given where you're at in the game and just starting hard mode conquest, and I think that should, well, it doesn't have to be a real focus. I personally like to focus on conquest, so maybe I'm projecting, but I actually think it might make sense to go for the Night Sisters before you go for the Peridia Patrol guys. I think it makes sense to do both eventually, if we can spell again, but given you already have some investment in these 2 with stars, I think it might make a good bit of sense to go Kyber Lightspeed token, get all of the Cantina farming completely finished, and then you'd only need 1 relic level each if you want to go for Balin, but you wouldn't even need to do that straight away. You could just have them at relic 6, which would be fine for conquest. Maybe Erodium Lightspeed token you could either do a Night Sister Spirit, but as that's quiet, that's like not a Chirotech farm, quite an easy farm to get shards for as well, then maybe you might want to do that on, let's say, like Night Trooper, and then sort of build out a solid Night Sister team, which should be quite good for conquest, especially hard mode. And then you're into that sort of Peridia Pals, Balin sort of farming path as well. So I think that could be a very good option for the tokens, just because some of the big GL farms you have, there's not like immediate good options jumping out to me, because a lot of the Chirotech you've already done. So, but it would just be things like Aura Sing that you might just want to get a head start on. And also, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but Han Solo might be a good option in terms of shoring up your roster, just to round out that CLS team, and he's good for conquest as well. So that might be a good early relic, even if you're still a little bit off going for Jabba. Might be a nice thing to do sooner rather than later. So that's the roster. I'm now going to quickly go away and put together a small suggested plan for your account. So let's do that. All right, so I put together a little bit of a plan for this account just to organize my thoughts. So as usual, I'm just going to start with what's already been worked on and is very close to being finished. So Jedi Knight Luke is pretty much there, so just Captain Han Solo and Jedi Knight Luke himself, and then you can use him for the assault battle. These are just the lightspeed tokens we're getting. Try to get CT1. You can maybe try and get Grand Inquisitor if you want to, but personally I would see if I could do CT1 with just these guys, because we're getting their Zetas, and then take the bros up to R7. I'd actually recommend, because none of these really required that much R8s and no R9s. I don't think there's any R9s in this plan. So if you do find yourself building up those resources, a lot of Mark III, when you can, I would recommend trying to get these up to R9 and just get that return on investment started as early as possible. I think that would be a nice option and a way of really focusing on the account you already have instead of building out too wide at the start. Then I think I'm going to work backwards a little bit. So you mentioned Jabba is in your plans, and I think that is definitely a very valid option to go for as the next GL, and you could easily swap Jabba and Leia, who I have before him in this plan, and that's fine. But I thought I'd just illustrate how much closer I think you are to Leia than Jabba, and also just to put them back to back in the plan, just for a bit of context. So the reason for going for Jabba is of course his mod event, but I think what's quite often overlooked when it comes to farming order is, yes, maybe Jabba is the more valuable GL in terms of return on investment, but if you're going to do him soon after anyway, what are you losing out on? You're losing out on 2 or 3 months of that Smuggler's Run event, which is decent, it's good rewards, but it's not like you're missing out on years of that event. You will eventually get it online and won't be too much of a detriment to your account. And I thought I'd like map out the characters who don't have specific lightspeed tokens for them. Like for example, Fennec Shan does have a lightspeed token, so I haven't included her. You just have a lot more to do for Jabba, and the colors of the lightspeed tokens here: green is the anniversary lightspeed tokens, but the faction ones we get, where you have a little bit of flexibility. This is the Kyber one, this is the Rhodium ones. So there's just like a lot more to do of not that great characters, to be honest. There's a lot of just extra stuff that you have to do for Jabba. But Leia, even though Jedi Knight Luke isn't a requirement for Leia, a lot of his requirements are requirements for Leia, so you already have a very good start for Leia. And then you can use 3 of the upcoming anniversary lightspeed tokens that finish at the end of March for what you need for Leia, and then it's just a case of 4 relics after that. I might be forgetting one, but I think that's right. And that is, yeah, that's pretty easy to do, especially your account's in a good place in terms of guild rewards, and maybe getting even more Lightspeed tokens as you start to focus more on Colosseum. So I actually think Leia would be a good option, and also she's very good in Conquest, in Proving Grounds as well. So I think it makes sense to go for the GL that's closest to you to help in Conquest as a sort of all-round team as well, and then soon after go for Jabba for resources. But of course, I think it's still reasonable to reverse this order if that's something you're interested in. This would just be my personal preference. But then working back, I think given the Lightspeed tokens that you'll be getting, and the fact that for Leia mainly and for Jabba as well, there's not a lot of really good options for Kyber Lightspeed tokens. There's not a lot of like Cantina farms or Kyrotech farms or really difficult ones, and a lot of these you only need at Relic 3 anyway, so it would be a waste. I think it would make sense to focus those Lightspeed tokens you're getting, if you do get 4-star Maul, and focus that into an entirely new team, and that would be the Great Mother's team, which leads into CT3 for that assault battle. And then also you can work on the Peridia Patrol assault battle as well, and would be another great Conquest team. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to build out a little bit of depth for Conquest, actually, just because you've just hit 4 million, and from what I've noticed from the account, it may be kind of challenging given what you currently have. So that's where my focus is. Of course, if you wanted to go straight for Jabba, that's also a good option, but I think just building out a little bit more strength and depth, and these characters have very good return on investment as well. 2 assault battles you would be covering, so I would put the 2 Kyber Lightspeed tokens on both of these characters who you don't really have any progress on, so both are very expensive Cantina farms, are needed at Relic 7 eventually, so great uses of those. You said you have 5,000 era currency, so that would be 1 Erodium Lightspeed token. I would maybe put on Night Trooper, and that would leave Death Trooper, Peridia, and Night Sister to Relics, so that's just 2 relics. There's really only 2 relics you need to do initially for these guys, so I think that would be a very achievable team with all of those Lightspeed tokens and a lot of good uses. And then maybe by the time you get to all of this, you should actually maybe have another 5,000 era currency, especially if you start to focus more on Colosseum, as you've mentioned that you're hoping to do. You're going to be buying the episode pass, which actually helps quite a lot for Colosseum itself. You get 4-star characters, which it's not a lot, but there is a slight stat increase compared to 3-star characters. And also, I think one of the big underrated things is that you progress through the episode track a lot more quickly compared to free to play. So you get more currency overall because you can do the final reward box more times, but you also get it quicker, which basically just means you constantly have a little bit of an advantage when it comes to overall era level in Colosseum. So buying the episode pass, and you asked about like sort of good use of spending money, and you'd also mentioned the episode pass. I do think that is, for your account, probably the best place to spend money. Of course, you could maybe save for Lightspeed bundles, but I think the episode pass, especially now that you're getting you're getting Kyber Lightspeed tokens that you are kind of paying for from the Era Journey event, it's just such good value, because on top of all of the gear and Zetas and character shards that you're getting better Colosseum performance, and you're also getting Kyber Lightspeed tokens and a 4-star legendary. That, not sure how useful that would be at 4 stars, but you are getting that, which is nice. So all that's to say is I think you'll have the resources and the tokens to focus on teams like this, which would be a nice wee addition to the account. And then I guess moving back through it, now that we've worked past this, then I would move on to Leia, with the Lightspeed tokens we'll be getting up until March. You won't need the ones that come in April because you already have Bo-Katan, and then so I've split Leia across March and April. The months are just a guide, of course. This is more just to show the order. And then Jabba. And by this point, if you are sort of doing better in terms of Colosseum and Kyber Lightspeed tokens and more Rhodium Lightspeed tokens, you could start to use those on Jabba requirements. And this is just a sort of example of how to use them. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but the sort of Relic 5, Relic 6 characters, Cantina farms, I think that would be a good option. And then get Jabba soon after unlocking Leia. I've also put Balin because if you do decide to go for this route, if you're American, then Balin would be a good option because you will already have two of his requirements. And you did also ask about the Ufu Lightspeed token. So I think there's really two options depending on one variable, and that variable is your guild asking for Jedi Knight Cal Kestis? If they are, then I think using that on Sarah Junda would be a good option, along with Carbonite Lightspeed tokens on the other requirements. But if not, I think maybe saving it for a little bit and using it on one of Shin and Marok for Balin would be a good option. And then you can maybe use another Kyber Lightspeed token, because by the time we get to about this time in the year, the next era probably would have finished and you might be getting more Kyber Lightspeed tokens. You're probably getting more Rhodium Lightspeed tokens, and you can use those for the Balin requirements, and you just need to relic up Thrawn in order to get Balin. Yeah, so I think this offers a bit of balance in terms of building out strength and depth early, but still going for characters with sort of really good efficiency and resource return. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this if you've got any questions or feedback. And yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for letting me have a look at your roster. All right, so I'm here with the next roster review, and this will be for Scruffy Looking. So they provided a little bit of context on their account and some future plans, so we'll just quickly go over that now. So they've previously purchased some Lightspeed bundles, aren't doing that at the moment, focusing on the episode pass and crystals sometimes around double and triple drops, which I think was the case when they requested this review. Yeah, I think only buying the episode pass is a nice way forward. I don't know if it'll be a very interesting video, but I'm sort of thinking, because it always used to be that Lightspeed bundles are the best value in the game, and that might still be the case, but the episode pass is really running it close now, especially with the extra Lightspeed tokens that you'd be getting through a 4-star journey guide character now. So I might just have a wee look at the overall value of this compared to Lightspeed tokens, but that's a separate story. In terms of their account plans, they're working on Seer and Malakos, needing a lot of Omicrons, are a couple months away from Malgus and Fury class Interceptor for Leviathan, are getting Ezra, so a lot of Conquest characters coming online. Just need one character for JML. I think this actually might be done by the time I'm recording this, and then waiting on Inquisitor Lightspeed tokens for Reva, perhaps R9 for the Peridia boys, and close to Balin and clones for Lord Vader. So a lot going on. I think I have a very brief look at the accounts just when I'm like putting together the data I need for the review, and they're definitely at the point of being close to a lot of things. So I think it might be a bit of a challenge in terms of sorting out what would be the best priorities for an account like this. So they're really short on Omicrons, so I think that is the big bottleneck to keep in mind, and maybe not recommending too many characters and teams that are very Omicron dependent. Also looks like Zetas might be a little bit of an issue as well. They've just got to Erodium 2, and I actually think they're now in Erodium 1 by the time I'm recording this, so very close to Kyber, looking to maybe strengthen the roster with Kyber in mind, working on mods and maybe thinking about pausing overall farms to maybe get a little bit more strength and depth, which makes sense. So that's a quick bit of context. Let's move on over to their account stats. So they've been playing for about 3 and a bit years. I haven't asked them, but I have a feeling they might have taken a break recently, and that is just from looking at their GAC history. I might be wrong, but I think we'll check it. But I think they've been on a pretty amazing GAC win streak, which quite often comes after you take a break and come back and you're sort of climbing back up again. So this might not be continuous. 10.4 million GP, so I guess later mid-game, getting into late game, I'm not too sure. Those boundaries seem to change depending on who you ask, but definitely at the point where they're going to be close to a lot of things just naturally, so should make farming quite interesting. Mod score 2, about just under 3 for both, so a little bit of work that could be done here. I think they said they bought a lot of lightspeed bundles, so this is typical of an account like that. This was, or maybe still is, my main account where I relied heavily on lightspeed bundles, so it just tends to be your mods are a little bit lacking compared to others, but it's still fine. Ultimately, yes, you're maybe a little bit stretched when it comes to things like GAC in terms of spreading out the mods, but it's better to have those teams anyway, I feel, rather than just being super conservative and just trying to get a really high mod score. I think that can sometimes be a little bit overrated, but nonetheless still worth improving. Guild raid score, so 120 million, which I forget the exact box, but I think you're getting about midway there, or maybe a bit over in terms of the guild box. I think that's maybe just about 3,000 Mark III raid currency they'd be getting through the guild, and then also a good bit through the personal raid score as well. They're running the raid, I think, about every 7 days, sometimes every 6 days, but I think I've kept it at 7-day frequency, so they've got just over 10,000 Mark II income, 3,000 Mark III. Like most accounts at this size, it's always worth considering, can I improve raid score or even switch to a different guild that's getting a better raid score. Of course, the guild you're in, I think you're actually maybe even a little bit below average in terms of, or pretty much bang on average if I could do any maths, just a little bit below in terms of your raid score, but we can maybe see if there's any quick wins that could be done there. You mentioned the clones for Vader, so maybe this might increase. And in terms of your own performance, so Erodium 1, which if you stay in here this week, you will be in Kyber for the next 3v3 Grand Arena, which should be really good. Fleet rank set around 30th. Yep, so I think that's probably the biggest area that I can see improvement in. You said it's like all Leviathans at the top of your fleet, so I think you have Executor. Of course, I think it is possible to climb, but it's probably a complete pain to do so, and you'll probably just get knocked back down again very easily. So that says to me something that you should really be focusing on. Colosseum rank, you said about the 200. Yeah, the 200 a day, which is 60 to 90, which is decent. I might check what you're doing there. How are you spending on the marquees, that sort of thing. But that's pretty good. That's just over an Erodium Lightspeed token a month, and at an account this size, I would definitely recommend saving up for those tokens and not spending it on Carbonite Lightspeed tokens. So crystal income, I think, could be improved mainly with fleet. GAC, you're getting up there, so a lot of this will actually come from GAC. In fact, probably most of it, because you're only getting about 50 crystals a day through fleet, so that is really the area that is jumping out to me. Assault battles, you're pretty much there. You mentioned you're waiting on the Inquisitorius to gear up Riva, who you already have unlocked, so that will be your final CT3, so there's not really anything to focus on. And you've also indicated you might be working on R9 Peridia Patrol soon. I would say this is probably not a huge priority, definitely a good thing to have, but yeah, you're covered pretty much everywhere else, so it's not the most glaring omission to me. In terms of the resource GLs, you have Jabba, but at 10 million, we're maybe at the point where you're starting to look at the more expensive GLs and potentially putting them somewhere on your farming path. Yeah, so that's it in terms of the stats. Let's jump into the account. But first, actually, I'm going to take a quick detour because I asked them to send a quick screenshot of their conquest unit progress, because I think that's going to be relevant to the plans. So they said like a couple months away from Malgus and the Fury class interceptor. I'm just going to assume that's about the same. So now they're only 1 month away because some time might have passed. So yeah, these wouldn't be a blocker. In terms of other ones, so they do have a lot of conquest units already farmed, which we'll go through. But in terms of other ones, these I guess aren't necessary for a lot of the big farms, so it's not too much of a concern that they're like, some of them are like 6 months away. Like things like Jocasta Nu won't be improving grounds yet, so it will be a little bit of a wait. Same with Maz Kanata, the Stranger. It would be good, I don't know if you'll be able to unlock the Stranger by the end of the next 3 conquests, but that might be a good thing to maybe focus on in terms of getting these characters straight away. I do have a feeling that maybe a break was taken or something, that might be the issue here. But for example, like the Stranger, I can check if you have Starkiller, but that would be a nice team just to have without going out of your way too much. So would be good to see what you can do to focus on conquest. But let's jump into the actual account. All right, so here we are in Scruffy Looking's account. We have 4 GLs up and running, but I think as we'll go through, they're very close to quite a few more. So have Leia, Rey, SWGOH and Jabba. I like what they've done with the various relic levels on these, and are perhaps saving the relic 10, which I do like. That's what I'm doing myself. R9 Leia is great. I won't go through the account itself too much just because it's quite big. I'll have a look at the individual journeys instead, most likely. But they've got a quite nice sort of GAC focus, and have a lot of the important conquest units like Darkside Rey, Ben Solo, with all of their Omicrons applied, Darth Bane as well, with I imagine the 2 important ones applied. They said they're in a little bit of a bottleneck with Omicron, so would still be needing that for Taron Malicos. And yeah, they've got nice things like R9, Padawan and Obi-Wan, Commander Tano, which is great because they don't have JMK, but they can make a pretty nasty Rey team with Ben Solo, Cat, and then Ezra when they unlock Ezra, which in 5v5 would be a pretty nasty team. I was able to do that for a little bit on my main account before I unlocked Glat, and that was quite fun. In terms of other stuff, yeah, they have Starkiller, so yeah, if they can push for the Stranger, that could be pretty good, but they might be a little bit late for doing that. Just looking through this, I think a lot of their relics look like they're in a good place. They seem to be pushing things like R7 minimum, which is quite nice. Things like Jedi Knight Revan could maybe be pushed up, but that is really only, I would say, if you unlock Jedi Master Luke. I'm trying to think of what other glaring R5s, like sometimes like the Jabba team, because those requirements are only at R5, are a little bit underserved. Actually, let's just do that. My brain can't handle the huge list of characters. So yeah, let's have a quick look at Hut Cartel. Yeah, so they definitely have an eye on Relic Delta, getting characters like Skiffguard, Bausch up to Relic 7, Chrysanthemum up to Relic 8. They seem to be very on top of Relic Delta, I think is my impression. I'm sure there's a few characters like Trey, potentially, I guess, see how you get on with characters that you're using Treya for, and could potentially be an increase. Smaller things like once you get the Sith team up, maybe Bastila might need raised. I did that on my main account, but my main account's a little bit bigger, so I have a bit less to work on. But I'm sure there's a few other things, even things like Night Sister Spirit R7, which is great. because I imagine you have the Great Mothers as well, as we'll go into. So yeah, account looks really good, but let's have a look at some of the journeys. So I'm just going to jump straight in and start with Leviathan, because as I mentioned, fleet I think is the main area to improve in. They said they're like a month or two away from Malgus, and the Fury class interceptor. In terms of other stuff they have to do, it's not really that much they have. This is a Cantina farm, I think, so will just be a case of over a month or so really focusing on that, and then a few relics here and there. R7 now is very easy to do with the changes, buying it with Mark II, so really all these four are pretty straightforward, and I imagine they're probably in a good place for R9 as well. Just need to done Revan. If this was me, I would maybe at this point just go straight for this, get it ready for, I believe, next Proving Grounds, when you should unlock Malgus and Fury class interceptor, and start focusing Cantina energy on this ship, because it's, yeah, I think it's the thing to do and will help you climb all the way up in fleet. It doesn't look like you've applied in R10, and depending on your fleet shard, I'm hearing that some fleet shards, a lot of people have applied R10 on Revan and have basically ordered their reinforcements in such a way that forces out the scimitar early, which means in order to have relatively pain-free climbs, you might also want to relic 10 your Revan, but I'd wait to see how you get on once you unlock the Leviathan to make that decision. So yeah, this in my mind would be priority number one. In terms of other stuff that they have mentioned, so they have mentioned Balin, already have the Night Sisters R7, which is great. They have a full team up and running. So yeah, they of course are very close, so maybe like a month or so away with farming Marok. But I think the issue with Balin and a lot of the other ones is that you are in a bit of GAC bottleneck. So when I put together the plan at the end, I think I'll try keep that in mind and maybe space out some of the very Omicron heavy teams like Balin, Bo-Katan, you're just finishing Malakos, and put I guess sort of less Omicron heavy farms, like obviously the Leviathan won't require anything. Yes, you can apply Omicrons to Malgus, but you could really make do with just one Omicron on Malgus, which is pretty nice. Yeah, so Balin, you're close to, but wouldn't be priority number one for me. You also mentioned Lord Vader and the clones. So this is Lord Vader. I would imagine you picked up the Lightspeed bundle, so you are extremely close to unlocking Lord Vader, which is great. But I think you also have a mind on his clone team, wanting that team up and running for when you unlock him. So this is probably, I guess we'll maybe have a look at JML, but this is probably the GL that you're closest to. You just need like 3 relicates and you're there. In terms of the clones, so I've popped up Jedi Master Mace just because they are his requirements. You have them all at gear 12, so a little bit of a sort of relic grind for these guys. So might be the sort of thing to do in the background while you're working on other things, and then once they're up and running, then finish Lord Vader and you have that team, which would be great. Could potentially think about raid score. Maybe we're about halfway through the raid at least. Some people think it could go for a bit longer, so it might still be worth maybe thinking about how you can improve raid score, especially if you're going for the clones anyway. But yeah, I think definitely somewhere in the plan, but maybe not straight away. Bo-Katan, I would very much wait until that Lightspeed token comes out anyway, just because you're going to be bottlenecked by Omicrons in the meantime. So yeah, this is probably a sort of April, May sort of target. Also, because you're, I guess, a very high GP account, you're going to be close to a lot of GL, so I'm going to go through most of them. JMK, you are also very close to. So Bo-Katan, Watt's already at 7 stars. So yeah, this is a sort of, again, so you're going to be like 3 or 4 relics or 3 or 4 relic characters away from most. So it's just about prioritizing. JMK doesn't have a resource event, so I wouldn't put him higher than some of the others, but you already have Cat up and running. So it's the sort of thing where you've said you're bottlenecked by Omicrons at the moment. So, I mean, you might also be bottlenecked by Zetas, but if you're not so much, then it would be, you'd be just as well going for something like JMK over like even Balin or Bo-Katan, just because it's a very similar relic investment, maybe a little bit more, but you're very close to a lot of these GLs. And the good thing about JMK is he does not require any Omicrons on his team. No, just Zetas, so could be an option. Ahsoka, so another one that you're close to, and this one I maybe would prioritize a bit more. You're unlocking Ezra soon. You use the droid lightspeed token on Hu Yang. You're doing decent in Colosseum, so I would maybe think about like applying an Erodium lightspeed token on General Syndulla, and then, I mean, that's pretty much it. You just need to relic up Ahsoka and then work on some of the higher R9. So these two, you're actually very close to Ahsoka, which is pretty cool. So this might be relatively up there for me in terms of priority, just because she has that resource event, is a good GL. You'll be getting Ezra soon anyway, so I think would be a good option. Pirate King Hondo, less so. Yeah, I think you're far enough away from this. I wouldn't prioritize. I'd wait till the characters become accelerated. He does have a good mod event, but is maybe not priority number 1 for me. And also just checking profundity, another thing that you're close to. So many, 3 characters needed to relics, and then just some R9s and R8s. This would be a very nice like farm to pad things out if you are bottlenecked by Zetas and Omicrons. Yes, you can put an Omicron on Radis and a few Zetas, but it's not the most transformative team, so you could just leave them just at relics and no abilities, but just make use of their fleet, which you'll be able to start farming shards of over time. Will also help in GAC performance, especially when you move into Kyber and need 3 fleets. Having like all of your legendary fleets up and running is very handy, maybe even more so than like an additional ground team sometimes. So this would be a good thing just to ease that Omicron bottleneck, I would imagine. So let's hop back into the account. I did want to check JML actually, so I think you said you unlocked him. You did, yep. So obviously all the requirements done. You did ask about, let me just check. Yep, you did ask whether you should apply all of the Zetas to him or maybe wait for like Ezra and Malgus, which you'll be getting through Proving Grounds. Yeah, I think you might actually be better off, especially for Ezra, waiting to apply maybe not all of the Zetas on him straight away, but I think definitely most of them. He might, in terms of raw GAC performance, having him up and running will probably be more impactful than Jedi Master Luke, just because you'll be able to stick Ezra in the raid team and you already have like a good Ben Solo, and I imagine would get you some more holds. And yeah, in terms of you do have Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, so you will have a decent Jedi Master Luke team, so it's definitely worth doing at some point. But I think I agree in that you might want to hold off for the conquest characters that you're unlocking. And then also, I think you also mentioned Reva. So if we go to Inquisitors, yeah, so you'll be getting the lightspeed tokens. You already have her Chirotech done, so it would just be a case of relics and Zetas. Yeah, do you need all of her Zetas? I can't quite remember. Maybe you might need 2 or 3, but would be maybe a good option. Yeah, I'm not too sure whether to go for her or JML first, but I would definitely go for Ezra first. Malgus, you only need 2 Zetas on him. In terms of the rest of the team, you already have the important ones done, like Bastila, who's down here somewhere, maybe. You already have her Zeta. So yeah, only 2 Zetas required for Malgus, and will help with his ship a little bit as well in terms of power. Yeah, so yeah, I would hold off on JML Zetas for a little bit. Once we start to build up a supply again, then it's still a good team to have. I know he is not as a good GL, but especially in like lower Kyber levels, you're always going to have a use for him on offense, and will just be another arrow in your quiver for GAC. You already have Jedi Knight Calcastus, so still definitely worthwhile investing in him, but maybe things like Ezra first. If we go to conquest units that you do have, yeah, so you've already invested all of the Zetas you need in the teams that you do have. The only thing to check would be unaligned force users and Taron Malicos team. So you would need just the Omicrons and Taron Malicos, as you mentioned. You already have it on Serjunda. Yeah, so yeah, maybe focus on Ezra for a bit and then swing back and get JML. I'll put together a little bit of a plan or suggested plan at the end of the video. One thing I did want to check actually is era levels. How are you doing on active era units? Yeah, so you are 4 stars for all of them because you said you have been buying the pass. So that will mean in a couple of days, actually tomorrow, maybe even as I'm recording this, you should be able to get the 2 Kyber Lightspeed tokens for Spider Legs Mall, which would be pretty amazing. So I might have a think about maybe factoring those into the plan a little bit. Where would they fit in? Maybe some like difficult requirement characters, that sort of thing. So yeah, that is very interesting to know. And the final thing in terms of the account I think I want to check is your guild. So the Legion of Bush Wookiees. I don't know why I said that like it was something I couldn't pronounce. I think that's maybe me just expecting not to be able to pronounce things. So I wanted to have a look at raids. So yeah, you are getting a decent box. A guild at this size, like 500 million, has jumped up a bit. I swear it was only like 400. Let me check my graphic. Yeah, you somehow jumped up 20 million since I think yesterday when I made this. Maybe you've recruited some more players, but yeah, so over 500 million. Yeah, so yeah, you could still be at the point. I don't know, are you an officer or something in the guild? Always like to check for that. I don't believe you are. Where's Scruffy Looking? There you are. No, so it's still maybe something to have in the back of your mind is maybe raid performance. If we look for raids, Order 66, how are you doing? So you're doing about 2 million from memory with like the Jedi Vanguard. The only big improvement would be Scorch and Tarkin. If you are going to push for Lord Vader and clones, that might be a decent option. It would just be really a case of Relic 8 and 9 on Scorch and Relic 8 and 9 on Tarkin, who you already have at 7, Relic 7. So depending on where you're at, if you're maybe looking at, oh, I could maybe move guilds or just want to get a higher personal raid score, that could be a nice little side farm at some point, but that is probably it. You could also potentially get Jedi Master Mace Windu at that point, but I don't know. That's, yeah, he's not superb outside of the raid, so potentially not. Yeah, so I think that does it in terms of the account. I am now going to go away and put together a quick plan for this account. All right, so I put together a bit of a plan. For this one, I've focused mainly on trying to spread out the Omicrons and Zetas as much as possible, because I think that will be the big bottleneck, not so much the relics required for the various farms. I think you're already very close to a lot of the Journey Guide and GL characters, and we'll be getting things like Erodium Lightspeed tokens, Kyber Lightspeed tokens, so I really don't think relics will be your bottleneck. What you can do is you can focus, as you mentioned, maybe on filling out your roster. in the meantime, like focusing, you've already got a lot of key characters to Relic 7. Maybe start getting some like key characters up to Relic 8, like maybe Bausch, I think was only Relic 7, and other ones like get your conquest characters maybe up to Relic 8, like these two. You might already have Malicos at Relic 8, actually, I can't remember, but like get Ezra up there, because yeah, I see Omicrons and Zetas being your main bottleneck, and relics maybe not so much. So in terms of the plan, so I think to begin with, it would just be a case of finishing off your Ufu team, which is there apart from the Omicrons, and then maybe Ezra as well. But in reality, I think like Ezra you can get use of even with just one Omicron initially. He really benefits from all three, but even if you're only able to apply one at the start, I can't remember exactly which one, I think one of his uniques, you'll still be able to get good use out of him in GAC, but sort of work away in the background on his Omicrons and Zetas while you focus on other things in your roster. And I think the first actual farm you should go for, if we're starting from now, is the Leviathan. And that's because you are so incredibly close to the Leviathan, just waiting on a couple of conquest characters and ships coming online. And the great thing is that it's a fleet, and yes, you could apply Zetas and Omicrons to the Malgus team, but you would only need 2 Zetas for Malgus and really only 1 Omicron if you were being very strict with the Omicrons that you're applying. I think I only have 1 on my main account and he still does a good job, so that would be a very nice relief for some of the bottlenecks you have. Will solve the main issue of your income, which is fleet, and getting those sort of 300 extra crystals each day. As I mentioned earlier, maybe have in the back of your mind Darth Revan as a potential R10. That would really depend on how easily you're able to climb once you unlock Leviathan, but could be a sort of thing that makes it easier. I haven't done it myself on my main account because somehow there's only one other Leviathan in my shard after I think nearly 3 years, which I think is incredibly lucky. But I would myself, if there were multiple Leviathans and I was constantly doing mirror matches, I might myself be tempted just because of that time saving aspect. But moving on, then I think, like, I put these in order, but I think a lot of these will overlap technically, because while you're working away on finishing the relics needed for Leviathan, you can start to apply the Zetas and a couple of Omicrons to the teams and characters that you already have, like Riva and Grand Inquisitor, when you get the Inquisitor Lightspeed tokens. I don't think those are like a number 1 priority, so I would personally still go for Leviathan over getting these teams online, but eventually it makes sense to start applying the Zetas and stuff to these teams, and to Luke as well. In terms of which one to go for between these, I don't really think the priority makes too much of a difference. I would say they're maybe at about even in terms of their performance when it comes to JAC. That might be controversial, I don't know, but both tend to be sort of offense teams that can beat a lot of things but maybe not a lot of GLs. So yeah, worth working away in the background. Moving on, so I actually think the next GL that you should maybe go for is Ahsoka, and that is for 2 reasons. One is she has an economy event where the other options you have don't, and also you are very close to unlocking Ahsoka. I put the little C-3PO panic farm thing, and you're looking at a few relic 9s, which of course will be a bit slower to get, but the relic 9s are easier to come by nowadays, and also relicking General Syndulla. But you'll be getting Kyber Lightspeed tokens in a couple of days, and that, I think General Syndulla would be a very good option, because all of these are all like legendary characters that you can't use lightspeed tokens on, and she is Cantina farm, so it would be a very good use of one of your lightspeed tokens, and then you'll have the other spare maybe for applying to Ahsoka Tano Fulcrum, but you can maybe save it for something else. Yeah, and you would have already have worked on Ezra at this point, so you could then you could either take her away from the raid team, or you can keep him together with the raid team. At lower level Kyber, I think even an Ezra-less Ahsoka team would still be good, but equally you can maybe then just stick Commander Ahsoka Tano in your raid team instead, and that would still be pretty formidable. And yeah, you wouldn't, I don't think, have to worry about the TW Omicrons for Ahsoka on Padawan Sabine and Hera, so wouldn't require too much more Omicrons either, so I think would be a nice option to go for sooner rather than later. And then moving on, so I put a bunch in May, so this is really more of an option. I think for me, even maybe sooner than May, it makes sense to also work on the Profundity just to get that unlocked and get the shards, because you are, I think, like 3 relic characters away. Obviously some R9s as well, but the beauty of that farm is you can just ignore any of the Zetas and Omicrons on those characters, because they're not going to be the most life-changing ones. So it makes sense to me to have this as like a Zeta and Omicron relief farm that you can work on while you're still working away on Zetas and Omicrons for like these other characters, and just sort of insert it in when you think you have the capacity to just apply those additional relics. So, and will also help a lot in Kyber GAC with the 3 fleets, and having all 3 GL fleets should be, yeah, pretty beneficial. Other options about this time would of course be Bo-Katan and Balin. I don't know why I put him wildcard here and his requirements through here, but of course the big hang up with these will be Omicrons, 3 each potentially, not that much work required in terms of relics. So I think that's probably Bo-Katan's maybe the slightly more useful characters. I'm not too sure. I think I'd probably just leave it up to yourself. Maybe your guild might want Bo-Katan for the territory battle mission. In that case, then obviously go for her instead. And then last, I have put Lord Vader. I think for me it makes sense to like put him after things like Ahsoka and Leviathan, just because he is not attached to a good economy event. Yes, you could have use for some of these characters in the raid, and that might be a reason to do them earlier, but if you're happy in your guild at the moment and your raid contribution, then obviously there's not too much point in pushing those higher. And it's another sort of thing you can work on in the background, getting all of these clones up to relics while you're working on these other various things, and then swing back around and unlock Lord Vader once you have them up and running. I would just personally put him after Ahsoka in terms of priority, because if you think about it, yes, you're closer in terms of requirements for Lord Vader, but in terms of having a functional team, you're actually closer to Ahsoka, because her requirements make up her team, and Ezra as well, who you're working on anyway. So I think Ahsoka makes a little bit more sense, because you would have to farm these guys on top of the requirements. So yeah, that brings me to the end of this review. Please let me know your thoughts, and if you have any questions. I really enjoyed reviewing the account, and thanks for letting me do so. And yeah, thank you very much, and see you next time.